Hello and welcome to the Truth Live and Work podcast, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. My name is Leanne, I'm a business psychologist.
My name is Al, I'm a business owner.
And we are here to help you simplify the science and psychology of work.
Yes, we are. You might notice something slightly different this week if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening. If you're listening, you probably notice it as well. Leanne is not here. She's in the UK. You've been there for about 9 days now, haven't you?
About 2.5 years, I think, at this point now. No, it's been lovely. I've had so much fun getting to see people and see my friends and definitely building up, using those relationships to build up my energy again. So yeah, it's been fun, but it feels like I've been away for ages.
It does.
Miss you.
I know I miss you too. And if there's I'm going to see you tomorrow. You come back tomorrow, which is I'm very, very excited about. But anyway, so this week we're doing this remotely. If you've not listened to a Tuesday episode before, if you've not listened to the pod at all before, really quickly, Tuesday is a real sort of like loosey-goosey episode where Leanne and I'll chat about what's going on in the world of work. And then we have the world-famous weekly workplace surgery where I put your questions to Leanne. Thursdays, they're about interviews. We tend to bring in external experts. We have a big interview with them, and then Leanne will generally translate anything which I don't understand from the interview.
It's actually last Thursday. I'm usually, because we're nerds, we usually sit down and listen to the podcast, don't we, afterwards, and just do some like constructive criticism, what we liked about it, what we could have done a bit better. Generally, just think how cool the guest was. But because I've been away and I've been so busy, I haven't listened to last Thursday's episode, Al. Fill me in. Who did we have on?
We had the incredible Todd Davis, who is the chief or the ex-chief people officer from Franklin Covey. Franklin Covey is the business that Dr. Covey jointly started. The story's in the podcast, but it's basically Dr. Covey wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we talk about that. We talk about whether it's still relevant. Todd knew Dr. Covey very, very well. I worked with him for, I think, 20 odd years. But also, the Franklin Covey is known as the most trusted leadership company in the world. So it is quite a treat to speak to the chief people officer and see how they do things.
I can't wait to listen. I've already got it downloaded. I'm going to put it on the plane tomorrow.
Fabulous. Next week, as in this Thursday, we've got Peter Dorrington from Anthrolytics. Leanne and Peter had a conversation maybe about a month and a bit ago, Lee.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Really interesting guy. And she said, look, he's a data nerd. Al, you're an all-round nerd. You need to speak to Peter. So me and Peter, or Peter and I, had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and it is fascinating. Basically, he uses data to predict when your people might be disengaged, when your people might quit, whether they're happy, whether they're not. But we also got into so much more in there. It was genuinely about a 2-hour conversation, which we will potentially publish the entire conversation because I think nerds will love it. But we will bring it down to about 40 minutes for you for next Thursday.
Right.
So, Leah, is it your favourite time of week?
It is. It's my favourite time of the week. It's time for the news roundup. Cue that jingle.
Consider it cued. What have you got, Lee?
So there I am, casually scrolling through my feed with my cup of tea. The tea, can't tell you how much tea I've drank since I've been back, and it's been glorious. I've got loads to bring you back, don't worry. But anyway, there I am, with my cup of tea, having a look through my news feed, and I see a headline from Fortune that makes me want to go back to bed immediately, hiding under a blanket in shame on behalf of McKinsey, who this article was about. Did you see it?
No, I didn't.
About their event in Copenhagen. They had an event in Copenhagen. You've heard about McKinsey recently, haven't you? Like they're going through a few layoffs. We had that story on the news roundup a few weeks ago about how one of their employees was calling out their culture and their shady performance management practices. Well, it's a bit of kind of a pick me up, bringing everyone together. They had a corporate getaway in Copenhagen last week, I think it was. So the usual motivational speeches, what the next few years looks like. In theory, good idea. You know, we've had a lot of layoffs. We reset the corporate culture, but they went down a route that makes me feel a bit icky. In that, alongside these motivational speeches from these leaders who've basically just been dickheads for a while. Sorry, bleep that out. They had a playlist out featuring Eminem, Bob Marley, and Chumbawamba, as in, I get knocked down, but I get up again. You ain't ever going to keep me down. Also, that song goes on to talk about quite binge drinking in quite a big way, so I'm not really sure how appropriate it is. It was aimed to boost morale. It was aimed to So, this is the turning page moment, as managing partner Bob Sternfeld described it. So yeah, and by the sounds of it, it went down a bit like a lead balloon, if nothing else, because it was leaked to the press and it was in Fortune magazine. I think it's one of those things, that if McKinsey were in a good place and they're treating their staff well, then these types of I guess it's a sense of positive, it's a positive affirmation in a sense, isn't it? Having these types of playlists and stuff. So they're going from a positive psychology perspective, surviving to thriving, and this could work. There are some studies that have found that these types of self-declarations can boost self-confidence and morale, overcome negative thoughts, manage stress. But it's positive psychology. So it's like techniques, as I said, that get us to thriving. It's not going to help with things like burnout, disengagement, toxic cultures. So it's going to feel a bit of a slap in the face, I think, if you've been working really hard and it's like, it's okay, guys. This Chumbawamba song off of the 90s will motivate you. Bear that in mind as well. But half of their workforce have never even heard that song before. So anyway, the other thing I think is a problem with McKinsey right now, and I don't mean to be shady to McKinsey because I know everyone's having their challenges. It's a challenging economy. But equally, again, it's the tone. You're playing music like this and trying to make it all like cheesy and cool and we're all in this together. And you're also currently getting sued or under criminal investigation because of some of your consulting projects, mainly related to the opioid crisis. It just doesn't quite feel right, does it? That misalignment, that incongruence, I just think is going to cause more problems. I think they missed the point. A catchy tune is not going to address the problems that McKinsey are currently having. So yeah, I think yeah, they're just not. It's just not it. Al, thoughts?
I think they need to find a Big Four consulting firm to come and really work through this problem. They need some experts in that. Yeah, it does seem a little tone deaf. I know Chumbawamba. I think they played them at the Tory Party conference. That's the Conservative Party conference, the right of politics. And Chumbawamba were not happy about that. And I don't know whether they sued them or basically said, "Don't stop using our music." I don't know. So yeah, it just feels really cheesy. Like it's almost like an episode of The Office where someone's just gone, "All right. Well, let's just do a little bit of let's do a disco. That'll get everyone's, never mind the fact that people are getting, are not getting paid enough. Never mind the fact that people are getting fired. Let's just get some pizzas." So yeah, it sounds like a big pile of horse shit.
Yeah, I'm definitely putting it in the same category as pool table in the break room. And I hope that there will be maybe some kind of TikTok coming out about this. I can see them around, like, I take some whiskey drink, I drink some vodka drink, I drink some cider drink just to get through the freaking day at McKinsey right now, I think. So yeah, interesting. Gave me, as the kids would say, the ick. Al, what have you got?
The ick. Not heard that before. Okay, so I think this was on something like boredpanda.com, which is it's my guilty pleasure. I like it in the morning when I wake up and I'm just having my cup of coffee. I like to scroll through Bored Panda because it tends to have some quite funny stuff on there. But this was originally taken from Reddit, I'm pretty sure. And it's a guy who went for a video interview with something called Hire View, which is an online AI assessment tool. Now, as a nerd, I'm like, I approve. As a co-host of the UK's #1 workplace podcast, I do not approve. Just this is his experience. To be prepared, I was directed to wear a suit with no tie. Very strange. Headphones were prohibited, and you had to have no external mic plugged in, which sounds really strange. But anyway, so basically, I got there, quiet area. It all started. The system asked me 3 questions, and I had a minute to read each one and ready myself mentally before answering in 3 minutes or less. The system, this is weird, but I can see why. The system doesn't allow you to delete your recording and make additional attempts. And when answering your questions, you're instructed to maintain eye contact with the camera and speak as if you were talking to a human being. If your eye strays away from the camera too long or for too much, then your score will plummet because it's been programmed to assume that this action is a result of reading a response from a printed card or perhaps a device or something like that. If your score is above a certain number, so therefore you are progressing, then real humans can record your answers, review your recorded answers, and you may then progress to another human. But the other weird thing is, after the 5 questions, then this person was saying they were given 2 games to play. The first game was basically a numbers and letters game where they had to memorize it and punch it in a digital keypad. And then they got harder and they started going backwards and all this kind of stuff. This person basically did not enjoy the experience. And they've explained that their parting comment was, if this is recruitment, then it's bullshit. They are not a big fan. Now, what interested me about this is that I can kind of see it as a first line, not of defense, but a first line of recruitment. Okay, that makes sense to me. I can also see the rule that if you look away too much, then they're assuming you're reading from a card or something, or reading from your phone. I think that's fundamentally flawed, because if you are, for example, Asperger's, autism, I know that can mean that you're not quite as comfortable with eye contact, or perhaps you don't even notice that you're not got eye contact. I think it's flawed, but I think it's a decent idea, but I don't think it's implemented well. I wanted to find out what you thought, Lee.
I agree. I think there's a place for these types of programs in the recruitment process, but I don't think it's been executed in a very good way. Like you say, it's massively, there's big problems in terms of discrimination, in terms of, like you say, neurodiverse. There's plenty of other, potentially physical disabilities that might mean that eye contact is difficult for some people. And also, just from a human perspective, we don't have conversations with people and stare them in the face and just keep talking and not look away. That's weird and creepy. We look up, we think, so I think that's flawed. I think in terms of the exercises themselves, if they're linked to the job, if they've been shown a job analysis to be required for the job as a way of assessing them, I think it frees up time massively. There's plenty of organizations that will use online testing in some way and do it very effectively. My concern, as you say, is the lack of flexibility, the potential discrimination, the potential legal challenges as well. And by the sound of it, it's not a very pleasant candidate experience, which particularly in this market where employees are, will form opinions around an organization that will influence their decision to take a job or not. I think candidate experience in the recruitment process is getting more and more important. So yeah, I agree. I think it has a place. I think it's been executed very poorly. Do better, I think would be my summary.
Nice summary. And I think also if you're not careful, you're comparing this AI to an in-person interview. So that's why you're saying they might be bringing notes, whatever. But actually a lot of interviews go on over Zoom, where you could easily have your notes on the screen. We use teleprompters. You're not using it today, but when we're back in the office, we've got teleprompters in front of us. So we have our notes up and we're looking at the camera. So I can look you directly in the eye and also read my notes. So I think what they should be doing is comparing the AI experience to a Zoom experience, Zoom interview, rather than an in-person. And then they're not going to come up with this idea of you can't look away or anything like that. Because I don't know about you, but what's the science? If you look to the right, you're recalling, the left, you're lying, or something like that. I can't remember which way around it is, but I know that I spend a lot of time when I'm thinking about things. I look over to the right and think about it. So yeah, flawed, as you say, flawed, but the nerd in me kind of likes it and thinks that, well, let's be honest, this is the worst it's going to be. So hopefully it's going to get better. What else you've seen this week, Lee?
Well, this next story actually comes off the back of the episode we did a couple of Thursdays ago with the co-founders of Ivy Jobs. You haven't listened to it yet. Ivy Jobs is a platform that is designed to help women return to the work after an extended career break, typically from having children or raising a family. So we shared the story of the founders behind Ivy, what got them to launch their business, what the business is doing, what the future looks like. One of our lovely listeners left a comment on the YouTube about this episode, and I thought it was really insightful, really intelligent, and actually raised some issues that I feel that we failed to cover in the episode, Al. So Alex said, totally agree on so many points. For example, women face miles more prejudice. A woman negotiating hard is just seen as difficult, whereas the man is seen as strong. A question for Lydia and Amelia, the co-founders of Ivy Jobs. Is it not more about the roles we find ourselves in and less so about being male or female? For example, I have a male friend who has been the stay-at-home figure in the household for over 15 years, and he experiences everything here that typical stay-at-home people face. And yes, that tends to be more often women. He can't get back to anywhere near the level he was at, and I would wonder if he would face even more challenges in being a returner. Imagine the prejudice he will face. You can imagine the thoughts and dialogue. What kind of man stays at home to look after the kids? I myself have moved out of traditional employment, and I absolutely know that there isn't a chance on earth I'd be seen as a strong candidate having been out of work for so long. I would have to return at a more junior level. Rather than using terms like motherhood, penalty tax, and the gender pay gap, why not see it as the homemaker pay gap in this section of the pay gap? I think using these terms also reinforces the lack of equality and diversity that ultimately impacts on all genders. It reinforces the fact that this is a female problem and fight. I mean, we did, don't know, when we're listening back, we did say, there are other minority groups that we've not really talked about in this episode. And I was kind of saying to you, Al, that I feel okay with that because it's a majority problem at the moment in terms of the significant proportion of the workforce not being able to get back into work at the same level, at the same rate, having those challenges. From a commercial perspective as well, it makes sense to me that you pick your market, and you've picked women, and there's nothing wrong with that. That said, I think Alec has raised some really important points that actually, and I wonder as well whether it might create a bit more empathy around the gender pay gap, because it's actually a homemaker's pay gap. It's a human issue. We're just perhaps a bit blinded by the female aspect, which I get because so much progress is needed in terms of women's rights. So much is needed. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting thing that this could potentially, we didn't recognize this subset of people will be equally impacted who aren't women.
Totally agree. I think it should be renamed to the parental pay gap, perhaps, or the stay-at-home parent pay gap. That would just make perfect sense to me.
So yeah, I think it's a really interesting. Thank you so much to Alec for getting in touch and sharing your thoughts. And for anyone listening who had a similar thought listening to the podcast, that we've missed something, we've not raised an issue that makes you, maybe even a bit angry, get in touch, leave a comment, send us an email. We would always want to hear from people that feel we haven't represented their views and their needs in that conversation, because that is our aim, to make sure that we are including every voice in the conversations we have. So please do get in touch. As always, our links are in the show notes.
In talking of letting everyone have a voice, I think it's time for us to let HubSpot have a voice who pay our bills. So we're going to take a short break. We're back in a second with the weekly workplace surgery. So welcome back. This is the segment of the show where we have 3 questions for Leanne. So going on to question number 1, this is what this person writes. I was promoted to manager about 18 months ago, and I do love what I do, but I found it really tough to motivate my team. They're mostly great people, but the old manager was near retirement and would do the bare minimum they wanted just to coast through. When I took over, I wanted to shake things up. Now, I've read lots of books on management, but all the techniques I've tried so far either have had no effect or a very short-term effect. So things settle back down to how things were before. What am I doing wrong, Leanne?
I'm not sure, because I'm not sure what things you're doing, because you haven't mentioned what it is you're doing that hasn't worked. I think, what would I do if this was me in this situation? What would I do? I mean, any insights you can gather from your team, ideally, anonymously, confidentially, might help you out here. So running some kind of employee voice insights type survey, you probably don't want anything too intensive, but even, I don't know, something like the HSE management standards that we talk about quite a bit. Gaining some kind of insights might be helpful, because people might be willing to maybe share what they're actually thinking and feeling anonymously, confidentially, more willingly than just through conversation.
Can I just stop you there? I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you just, we talked about the HSE standards, but if someone hasn't heard of those, then what would be the point of running the HSE standards survey? So
the HSE management standards are basically standards of management, behavioral, environmental aspects of team life that a manager can influence and provide that are positively related to employee well-being, reduce stress, which we also know increases motivation, productivity, performance, all that good stuff. So by getting the insights, what you're going to learn is you're going to learn about how much control people feel in their roles, how relationships are amongst the team, how they feel about their role, how they feel about you as a manager. And it really just how change is managed. It will just give you an insight into all of the, what we call psychosocial factors of team life that could be impacting motivation. Because a lack of motivation is only going to be stemming from either a lack of purpose, a lack of meaning, or stress. You know, having that high workload, it can be hard to stay motivated. I mean, the other thing to do as well, I think, is really, if you can build these relationships with your team where they will tell you the roadblocks to their performance, to their jobs, just the things that make every day a bit harder. And as a manager, you can remove those things, then people are going to feel more motivated because they know if they put the effort in, they're going to get the results. If every day is a challenge, whether it be a really, clunky process, whether it be the fact that they're commuting in peak time and that adds on an hour and a half to their day, there could be loads of different things from their workload to their commute to actually operationally how the organization is functioning that's just causing friction in terms of their day-to-day life. If you can remove them, it gives people more energy to invest in motivation. So I think whatever is happening is, you say, I've tried everything, it's not working. Well, I think that will be because you're doing things that are having an impact. They are sparking some enthusiasm. But if fundamentally the environment they're in doesn't change, then people will go back to that kind of baseline state of performance and motivation. It's much like happiness, we win a prize at work and we're like, oh, that's exciting, and we'll peak. But if we're still going to go back to that baseline of kind of our general happiness levels. So I think it sounds like you're giving people peaks. You're giving people little nudges, little spikes of motivation, which is great. But it sounds like there's fundamentally something within the organization that isn't quite working. So my thought would be to figure that out, that root cause. And as I said, it's either going to be that they don't really feel any meaning or purpose in their work. So it's going to be about talking to people about what the organization's mission is, what they're contributing to in terms of their role, and connecting those two things. So this is our mission. This is your role in helping us to deliver it. It's going to be down to workload, but also workload can be exasperated by, as I said, those clunky processes, those tasks that are unnecessary. So I think anything you can do to uncover that is going to give you the information that you need. So then that if you try something, you should be able to see where it's impacting, how it's impacting, and how well it works. Maybe you say, I'm trying everything and it's not working, it only works for a little while. Having the data will help you actually assess how well it's working. And as always, asking your people is really important for building trust, for motivation. If people know that you're on their side, then that's going to come through. And if they have an old school boss, they probably didn't do that. So it's probably going to take a bit of time for them to trust that actually you do want to change things and you do want to make it better. So I think your persistence is going to be really key here as well. But I say, try and get some insights, trying to have those one-to-one conversations, and just continue to do what you're doing with that data, backing you up. Continue to be curious, continue to experiment, and continue to invest your energy in motivating.
So what's interesting is that a lot of new managers or junior managers seem to think that they should be adding stuff to the team, to be putting changes in place. But really, it seems like the best thing to do is to take stuff away from it. Take the obstacles away from the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I got on a contract once that was struggling a bit, and I was not new to the business, but new to that team. We had basically a shit posting morning. Where it's like, tell me everything that's awful. Everything that's awful about the customers, about the other leaders, about your job, about the office, about your computer, about your colleagues, everything, anything that is pissing you off. I want to know. And we're going to moan about it. and we're going to just get it all out. And in the afternoon, cut off. You're not allowed to talk negatively about this anymore. We're now going to solutions mindset. So if you were the manager, how would you deal with that? How would you get rid of this problem? How would you make it better? And it comes to some kind of group consensus around that change, which also then means that people are already bought in to the changes that you want to make, which are going to make them much more effective, much more sustainable. There is a risk, of course, that you're going to get people go, well, I'm not on board with this. And it's almost like, well, good, because if you're not with us to change this and make it better, we're better off without you. We're better off with you not being in the business right now. So it can help with that as well. But it's a bold move. And I'd say as well, to this person who asked the question, is make sure that you've got the back of your senior leader has got your back. Are you talking to them? Are they providing you with recommendations or the resources you might need to dig into this a bit bigger? Because ultimately, whatever change you want to make, and it sounds like you're going to have to make some kind of organizational change to lift this baseline level of motivation, you're going to need the backing of your senior leader to make this work. So that's the other thing as well. Make sure you're getting the support.
Question number 2. I've built a smallish consultancy up from scratch where it was just me in my spare room to a proper office with 14 employees. But in the last 9 months, I just feel like we're not the same company anymore. Before we hired the last 2 people, we'd work on problems together. So everyone would pitch in if we had a sales presentation, and people were happy to stay late when required. Now, this person does say, note, I never made them stay late. They all volunteered. But since the last 2 people joined, things have changed dramatically. The office seems to have split into 2 teams, where neither team wanted to help the other team. This is not the culture I imagined. How can I go back to the good old days? Lee.
I say this with love. Your culture is not the same as it was yesterday. Your company is not the same as it was yesterday. And if you want your company culture to stay the same, then don't grow your business. Have a micro business where you can have that control. 12 seems to be the magic number. I think it's Daniel Priestley that talks about this. 12 is a number it seems to then split up into smaller groups. Different doesn't mean worse. Different can mean good. Culture evolves. New people bring in new ideas, new thoughts, new ways of working to the business. If you're growing your business, you know as an entrepreneur, you're not going to have the same business yesterday as you do today, as you will tomorrow, because it evolves and it grows. And it's the same for a team. It evolves and it grows. I think I've said this before. I think it's kind of like entrepreneurs. I understand you get so attached to your business. It is like your baby. And then all of a sudden your baby is a teenager and they don't want to play with you anymore. They don't want to hold your hand when they cross the street. They don't want you to brush their hair at night. That's just the way it is. And I think if you're serious about growing your business to a point where it is that SME, it's not a micro business, then I think you have to let it go. You have to put it in that big red balloon and let it go. The culture that you want is not necessarily the culture that the business needs or the culture that your people enjoy. It's the principles, the foundational principles of your culture. You can control it in terms of being the same. But people are going to shape that, and good, you want people to shape that. So I think it always comes down to, I guess, the practical things. If you're saying that your business isn't the same as it was, it doesn't feel like the same business, it's not. That's just the reality of it. In terms of your values, have you looked at those since you started your business? Have they changed? Do they still resonate with the people that you have in your organization today? Do they still resonate with the customers you're working with today? I'd imagine they're different to the people you're working with initially. So reviewing those values to think, does this still represent the type of organizational culture that I want? In terms of overarching values or those underpinning values. If they don't, we look at them, revise them, do it in consultation with the people you have in your business. You say in terms of people staying late, I'm not sure if I think it is a startup thing. I think people get very attached and very energetic in startup environments. I also just think the world has been moving on. People are not as willing to invest as much time in their work beyond what they're contracted for and what they're paid for. And I think this is where quiet quitting actually did did some favors from an individual resilience and well-being perspective, because we're now setting some healthy boundaries. I shouldn't be working till 8 o'clock at night because I need that rest and recovery time. So I think maybe even switching that mindset, and that actually that as long as your people are doing what you need them to do at the quality at which you need them to do it, within the time frames you need them to do it, then yeah, they go home at 5 o'clock and they don't want to stay. So I think for me, I'd relook at your values. I would do some consultation with your team in terms of how they see the culture, whether that be focus groups with them through discussion. If you just want to kind of keep it informal, you might also be getting to the point now actually where again, some employee insights might be useful, particularly if you're seeing people split off into teams and you're not as hands-on day-to-day with every member of the team. Getting some insights into what your actual culture is can be really useful, because it might be, and I've worked with clients before who felt that they feel detached from the culture, they feel that the culture's not right. And actually when we've dived into it, they've got a lovely culture and their team love their culture. It's just that they've disconnected from it because of growth, because of circumstance, because of a whole variety of reasons. So I might actually just be looking at, if you've got the data that actually shows this is the culture we've got and actually people love it, it's finding ways for you to reconnect with that culture. Your team might be perfectly happy with it. And I think finally, as an entrepreneur, it's getting to that point of, are you just feeling a lack of fulfillment because you're not getting your kicks from the work environment anymore? If you're an entrepreneur, you love being scrappy, you love that risk taking, you love that innovation, you love that early day startup phase, because that's what's in you, that's what motivates you, that's what brings you joy. The organization is now at a point where it needs a bit more stability. It does need a bit more formalization. It does need, these things in place that might be better placed with a more typical operations director or CEO type role. Do you have a number two in your business who's going to get excited about that side of the business while you can go and innovate into products or services or customers? So it's making sure, I think, that is it a cultural problem, or is it that you're detaching because you're not feeling as fulfilled in your role as a business owner of a larger business? That would be my advice. Do some introspection and then talk to your team. But my suspicion would be it's your lack of current fulfillment that is potentially you're then projecting onto the team culture.
Great answer. And as someone who has grown a business up to 25 employees, I did notice the change. You're exactly right. And Daniel's right. It's around about employee 13. Did notice a massive change. And yeah, I took it very personally. Question number 3. Hi, Leanne. I hope you can help. To be really frank, I feel like I'm drowning at work. Here's the background. Although my title is operations manager, I've been responsible for recruiting for a year now. Now, I don't mind it, but I'm getting to the point where I feel like I can't give it proper attention anymore. What I like about this is that I almost feel as the person's writing it, more and more things that just come out. So they say, my workload has massively increased, and as the person in charge of operations, it feels like everything that is not sales or finance is just dumped on my desk. I've been considering using a recruitment firm for my recruitment, but this is very expensive, and I've heard some bad things about some of them. What should I do? Seems like a very open-ended question there, Lee.
Yeah, again, without a bit more information, context. You know what I'm like? I'm always like, it depends. I need a bit more info, I need a bit more insight. But I guess off the surface of it, what would I do? I get it. Operations is, you get so much cloud on you. And I've worked with so many operations directors who feel the same, because you're right. Anything that's not sales, marketing or finance, it's like, I'll give it to the ops person. They'll do it. It's an under-respected job, I think, operations. I think that again, it sounds like if your workload is going up, it sounds like you're in a growing business. It sounds like business is going well, or maybe business is going badly and people have been let go and now you're picking up their workload. Either way, it sounds like your workload is not sustainable. And it sounds like you are, well, I think did they use the word drowning?
Yes.
That's a very visual and emotive analogy, isn't it? That it sounds like you're feeling that you're drowning, then you can't breathe, and then something needs to be done about it. Because whatever scenario the business is in, if you burn out, then it's not going to be good for anyone. So I think the first thing is to probably, and I know this is really difficult, but if you can go through your day and just think about, if you reflect at the end of the day on everything you've done that day, and just make a list in terms of what has been productive use of my time today, and perhaps what was something I had to do today, but didn't require it to be done by an operations manager, a senior member of staff. And I think just by doing that from a task perspective, you'll start to build a business case for potentially hiring some extra support. Because as an ops director, if you're spending the majority of your time on what is actually admin tasks or something that a more junior role can do, then there's a business case then to hire that person in, because you can divert your energy to more value add activities within the business. Similarly, there might be technology that will be able to help you with some of those things. Because I think once you've got that, it's going to require a conversation with the person above you to say, look, this is what's happening. This isn't working. It's no longer effective. I either need extra help or better technology or an outsourced service like recruitment. And it's going to give you some data to kind of build that business case up. From a personal perspective, in terms of you, I think it's really important that you start to set yourself some boundaries as well whilst you're going through this transitional period to hopefully, offload or reduce your workload a little bit, get some extra help in. So I think, those boundaries, I know it's hard when you've got so much to do, but trying to get home at a decent time, trying not to work into the night, trying to take your weekends, making sure you're building that rest and recovery time. As we've talked about rest and recovery, it is much about the relaxation, but it's also about those recovery activities. Is that going walking with the dog? Is it cooking your favorite meal on a Saturday night? Is it going dancing with your girlfriend? Whatever it is, building those things in as well. Because it sounds as though you're on potentially that start of that downward spiral to what could end in burnout if you don't kind of nip this in the bud sooner rather than later. So I'd say that's a thing. If this is now, it's going to require action, because if you feel like you're drowning, this isn't going to get any better without action, without positive action. And you've taken positive action by asking the question in the first place. That's brilliant. You've put that out there. So I'd say from the job perspective, try to understand where your time is being spent, where it's not as productive, and what could potentially be carved out into another role within the business, given to other people in terms of development opportunities within the business, or indeed requires an outsourced service. And then from that individual perspective, try and set some boundaries for yourself to hopefully, keep your energy resources going while you're going through this transition.
I suspect that everything you've said there, the person who's written this already probably knows, but have just not really admitted it to themselves. It's funny because we're always very good at looking at other people and going, well, that's what they're doing wrong, but we are hopeless at looking at ourselves. And so what Leanne's just said there, I think, is you probably in your heart of hearts know that something needs to change. You probably in your heart of heart knows that this isn't sustainable over the next 10 years and something needs to happen. So it's not a question of going in which recruitment firm. It's like, I need to change something. And yes, so follow Leanne's advice. I think it's fantastic. And Leanne always says it depends, but then you do come out with some amazing advice in there. I love what you said about that. That was absolutely fantastic. Well,
thank you. I was going to fly that up quickly as well. What you can do while you're making that list, if you are worried that actually you're just not enjoying your job anymore, is once you've got all those tasks that you do, and this was a tip shared with me by a career coach who's coming on the show very soon. So a little teaser on this. She said something similar, but look at your tasks as a way of what gives you energy and what takes energy away. And if the majority of your day-to-day tasks are taking energy away from you, then that is not sustainable. If it's a fact that what your day-to-day tasks should be would give you energy as an operations manager, and the ones that take energy away from you, the ones that can be carved out into another role, then that gives you an insight in terms of the longevity of you in this role and how much you're going to enjoy it. So I think it can feel laboured, it can feel forced, but going through that quite practical step, approach from a transactional, what do I do in my day-to-day working life, to how do I feel about my day-to-day working life, that should be quite effective to help you make some potentially big decisions.
Thank you, Leanne, as some more great advice there. If you have a question for Leanne, then check out the show notes. You'll see the email. You can email it. It'll come through to me, and I will put that question to Leanne next time we have another workplace surgery, which will be next Tuesday, because this Thursday coming up, as I said, it's the interview with Peter Dorrington. I think you're going to really, really like this. Even if you're not a nerd, if you're interested in human behavior, then it is a really fascinating episode. Anything to add before we go, lovely Lee?
I don't think so. We said the usual things: subscribe, click the button. Really helps us out. It's the best way to support the show. If you really enjoy the show, we really enjoy creating it for you. Throwing us that follow on Spotify, that subscribe on Apple, YouTube, it really does help us out. It's the best way to support the show. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that would be amazing. But we will be back on Thursday with Peter, the data science genius. It's so interesting, and I think there's going to be some really interesting ethical discussions around this as well. So do tune into that on Thursday, and I'll see you tomorrow, Al.
Yes, you will. I'll be waiting at the gate for you. I'll be so excited to see you.
No, you won't. I drove myself to the airport.
That's true.
Oh, the gate of the house.
I meant the gate of the house, yes, not the gate of the airport.
Okay,
but that would be foolish for me to take a taxi to Split to meet you. And mind you, that would be a really lovely surprise. But I'm not going to do that. Anyway, so we'll see you. I'll see you, Leanne, tomorrow, and we will see everyone else on Thursday. Have a fantastic week in the meantime, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to leave a review, we would absolutely love it. Speak to you soon.